Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are set to meet at an Alaska airbase at 7 p.m. GMT, with Trump hoping for a deal to end Europe's biggest land war since World War II. For Putin, the face-to-face is already a diplomatic win, signalling Russia's return to the global stage. Donald Trump was scheduled to leave the White House this morning for the Alaskan talks, but has not yet departed. It is unclear if he will speak to reporters before setting off. However, before leaving for Alaska, Trump says the Russian leader won't mess around with him. Ahead of the talks, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrives to the summit in a USSR sweatshirt as media settle into makeshift press rooms. Putin and Trump are flying in from opposite directions for their high-stakes summit. Israeli drones have ordered thousands to leave northeastern and parts of northwestern Zetoin in Gaza City, following a week of airstrikes, artillery barrages, and 350 home demolitions. The area has been a key target in Israel's ongoing offensive against Hamas. Torrential monsoon rains trigger landslides and flash floods across northern Pakistan, killing at least 110 people in 24 hours. Authorities warn of more heavy rain as climate-driven extreme weather batters the region. The UN says Israel's plan to build thousands of homes between a West Bank settlement and East Jerusalem is illegal and could force Palestinians from their land, a war crime under international law. Germany has urged Israel to halt the project. Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem warns Lebanon's government is handling the country to Israel by pushing to disarm the group, vowing to keep weapons as long as aggression and occupations continue. The plan, backed by the United States, faces strong opposition from Iran. Spain is fighting 14 major wildfires that have killed 7 people and burned an area the size of London. A 12-day heat wave and strong winds are making this one of the worst fire seasons in 2 decades. We start this hour where China has spoken out against European plans to reimpose sanctions on Iran over its nuclear program. Britain, France and Germany had warned the United Nations that they would bring back the measures if a new diplomatic solution is not reached by the end of August. In response, China said it opposes invoking new sanctions, stating that such actions do not help build trust or bridge differences between the parties. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian added that sanctions are not conducive to efforts to resume diplomatic talks early, highlighting Beijing's call for continued negotiations rather than punitive measures. We're now joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao to discuss this development in further detail. Dr. Nagao, thank you very much for joining us. What has China got in being interested when it comes to the Iranian nuclear program and also its sanctions imposed on Iran? How will that affect China?
Indeed, this policy is reflected by China's long-term policy. China is tilting towards Muslim world, Muslim countries in the Middle East, and when something has happened between Israel and others, in this case, China's side is very clear. For example, what happened just after the October 7, 2023 terrorism of the Hamas attack Israel that time. The China say Israel should take the responsibility about this terrorism. even if the part, but they clearly mentioned Israel's responsibility of the terrorism against Israel. So that's why the view from this statement, it is clear that the China focusing on Iran side more on the Middle East policy. So in this case, Iran's nuclear development program, indeed, about the missile fuel, Iran asked China to send, and so Iran is importing the fuel from China to fuel of the missiles in this case. So that's why Iran's nuclear program, indeed, China is supporting Iran's program. So and China and Western country, they are facing, the relation is deteriorating recently. So that's why view from China, supporting Iran is more beneficial than cooperate with the Western countries. It is a long-term trend of the China's foreign policy. Instead of this, China want to appeal their friendship with other global South countries. It's a current trend. So against Israel or against the Western countries, that is a long-term trend that recently China is seeking.
Yes. Dr. Nagao, if the European powers, being France, the United Kingdom and Germany, do reimpose these sanctions, what kind of damage is that going to have on the Iranian economy and also its position on the world stage?
Indeed, economic sanction will be meaningless if China supports Iran economically. This is other sanction we can see is a sanction against North Korea, sanction against Russia, sanction. So that's why every time the similar situation could happen if China trade with them. So that's why the recent trend is China expand influence through the sanctions. And China itself hasn't faced a strong sanction from the other countries because China's influence is very, very strong in the global free trade market. So that's why the U.S. tried to impose economic sanction against China, but very limited area, limited companies. So that's why still China is a hub to provide many materials to the other country, including country face economic sanction from Western countries. So sanction against Iran, yes, Iran want to escape from this sanction, but indeed, if China will cooperate with Iran, view from Iran, there's a possibility they can survive because of the China's support.
Yes, Dr. Nagao, thank you very much. You are staying with us for further updates from around the world. We now move over to the biggest event of the day, where in Moscow, residents are sharing cautious optimism ahead of the high-stakes Russia-US summit in Alaska. Presidents Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin meet today for their first face-to-face since Trump's return to the White House. Talks will focus on a Ukraine ceasefire, with Putin also hinting at a possible new nuclear arms control deal. Many Russians hope for progress towards ending the war and easing sanctions. Trump seeks a truce to boost his global peacemaker image, while Putin aims to loosen the grip of Western restrictions. Expectations remain mixed, with some seeing it as a crucial step, others calling it an interim show. Here's what a few residents of Moscow had to say.
Ну, очень рассчитываем, что будет диалог. Самое важное в этом диалоге, мне кажется, сам факт диалога. Потому что встреч не было очень давно, и, конечно, позиция двух больших держав, а речь идет, конечно, в этой встрече о диалоге двух сверхдержав, очень важно для всего мира. Я думаю, все в мире будут наблюдать за его итогами. Рассчитываем, конечно, что это будет конструктивный диалог. Будут ли какие-то решения? Ну, жизнь покажет.
Я надеюсь договорятся. Усталость немножко так под санкциями жить. Ну, а что еще сказать на самом деле? Просто вот 2018-2019 год, до всего этого начала, жилось как-то, полегче. Я не говорю, что неправильно все, но хотелось бы, чтобы это уже все на самом деле поскорее закончилось.
Ну, я думаю, в принципе, всегда нужно договариваться, встречаться с ведущими лицами разных государств, в том числе и наших крупнейших стран, и таких вот сложных, да, со всякими там этими ядерными вариантами и так далее, безусловно. Поэтому эта встреча, конечно, достаточно важная. Что она принесет, гадать мы не можем, это на самом деле. Никто не может знать, что будет, да, но то, что это уже двигается к какому-то диалогу, это уже какие-то плюсы и какие-то положительные, в моем понимании, ожидания, безусловно.
Dr. Nagao, a huge day in the calendar of global politics. Some people are calling this a win for Vladimir Putin already for just getting this huge symbolic meeting with Donald Trump and him to sit down at the table. Do you think this meeting signals Russia's return to the global stage, the possibility of some easing of some sanctions here?
It relies on the result of this meeting, but at the same time, in my personal analysis, it is very difficult for Russia to rejoin the international community because this meeting will not create something the Western country accept Russia as an equal partner. So, for example, if the Russia agree to ceasefire temporarily, view from the current war situation, there is a possibility Russia will restart the war. So that's why the temporary ceasefire is not enough for the Western country to accept Russia as an equal partner. But why the Moscow people say they have the hope in the meeting? Because they wish. Even if the economy is not bad, even if the gradually territory is expanding, war itself is pressure for the society. Any variety of the any type of the pressure will come to the people, even if in Russian side. So, for example, if the victim return from the war front line, they can see what happened, both physically or mentally, and or there is a possibility that they will need to go to the war front line in the future. So economy itself, still Russia can manage economy, but some variety of the pressure is existing in the society, and the people want to end this war.
Yes.
So such kind of situation is make the people say there is a hope in the meeting.
Dr. Nagao, there's been strong language, particularly coming out of the White House. We've got a Truth Social post ahead of his meeting with the Russian president, from which he has now left the White House to depart for that Alaskan summit. He's called it high stakes in bloc capitals. Do you think that there can truly be a breakthrough here without the Ukrainian President Zelensky? Or is this all a ruse, all a show, as some critics are saying?
If the two leaders left their original position to go Alaska, this means that at least one thing, that it will hold a meeting in Alaska, and this is achievement. View from the President Putin, of course, the meeting with the U.S. President is achievement, but at the same time, there is a risk because the U.S. President will betray the promise and contain him in the U.S. base in Alaska and force him to meet Zelensky. This is just a scenario, I imagine. But what if such kind of things has happened? President Putin faced a more serious situation. They need to agree, and the U.S. force him to do that. Something like that could happen if he visit the U.S. base in the United States. His life rely on the U.S. side, President Trump's side. So that's why the both achievement and the risk he is facing. So that's why if it has happened, this is of course itself is an important event.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Nagal, for joining us here on the programme. Pleasure for having you. And here on NewsX World, we will, of course, be following all the events coming out of that Alaskan summit as the day goes on. However, now we move to eastern Ukraine, where Russia's defense ministry says its forces have taken control of Oleksandro-Hrad, a key settlement in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. The development marks what Moscow calls a significant step in its campaign in the east. According to reports, the settlement is seen as strategically important, with its capture potentially altering the dynamics of the fighting in Donetsk. This comes after a Russian drone strike hits a gas station near the city of Sumy, damaging civilian vehicles and sparking a fire. The attack targeted cars on the station premises, injuring a driver who suffered burns while staff escaped unharmed. Regional authorities said the strike also damaged a nearby multi-story residential building. And we're now joined by Dr. Sanjay Kumar, who's a journalist for the Korea Herald, located in Seoul, South Korea, to discuss this further. Dr. Kumar, as always, pleasure to speak to you. Russia controls around 20% of Ukrainian territory currently. We are obviously hearing ongoing hostilities in the backdrop of this huge summit going on in Alaska right now. What are your views on how the war is going? Russia's possibly stepping up its military offensive in eastern Ukraine, possibly trying to take more from Ukraine after this summit. Those are reports coming out of Zelensky. What are your thoughts on what is going on the ground, the territory that Russia is creeping forward with?
The reports are coming, but it is still not 100% confirmed. So unless it is not confirmed, it is very difficult to comment on that. But this is not a new thing. This conflict is ongoing, and from both the sides, offensives, escalations, we had been seeing it since last couple of years. And because of that, President Trump is looking to sort it out in a very swift way. And this meeting is going to be very, very important, because if this talk fails, I have my fingers crossed that it should not fail. But if it fails, then there will not be any room of talk, I think. It will be very lethargic to many parties, including the US, Russia, as well as Ukraine also. But if you see from Russian perspective, they don't want to lose any kind of negotiation aspects when it comes to offensives or at the war front. So it is seen as a tactic to be in the center and be in a positive side, be on upside with more cards during the negotiation table. So now it is time for Ukraine also to come up with some cards of this nature.
Okay, Dr. Kumar, just quickly, because we are running out of time. What are your thoughts between the relationship, obviously, between the two figureheads of this, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump? Analyze the Truth Social posts, the warming and the cooling. Quickly, give us your thoughts on how those two men are going to interact.
The hopes are high from both the sides, but from President Trump's perspective, hopes are more higher, because Trump is not just representing US, but he's representing Ukraine, Europe, and the entire world, who is watching very closely about to the talks and its outcomes. So results are very important for Trump in this sense. And for Putin,
okay,
he is a tough guy. It is already perceived globally. So that is why it is very early to say. But we can hope for the best when it comes to the second level of second round of talk. So let's hope for the second round of talk to happen.
Dr. Kumar, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. Always a pleasure, of course. We are currently showing you visuals of Air Force One. They have gone now. Thank you very much. Air Force One there, the president's plane set to depart for Alaska. Donald Trump left late this morning from the White House, but he is expected to depart very, very soon in that plane. That is in Maryland. We will, of course, bring you all updates in regards to that when we get them. We now move on and over to South Asia, where at least 60 people have been killed and over 100 are missing after a sudden rainstorm triggered a flood in Kashoti in Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtwar district, the second such Himalayan disaster in just over a week. The incident struck a stopover on the Machiel Yatra pilgrimage route, washing away a community kitchen and a security post where many pilgrims had gathered for lunch. Officials say 300 people have been rescued, 50 of them severely injured, and the death toll is expected to rise. Rescue operations involving police, disaster response teams and the Army Air Force are ongoing. The disaster hit at 11:30 a.m. local time, with television footage showing pilgrims in tears as water swept through the village. Days earlier, a flood and mudslide in Uttarakhand caused similar devastation. The Indian Meteorological Department defines a cloudburst as over 100 millimeters of rain in 1 hour, which can trigger flash floods and landslides. The local weather office has warned of more intense showers in Kashmir, urging residents to stay alert. We're now joined by Bharati Chaturvedi. He's a founder and director of Chitan Environmental Non-Government Organization. Thank you very much for joining us, Bharati, here on the program. What more can you tell us about this tragic event that has occurred in the state of Jammu and Kashmir? Obviously, tragic scenes that we are showing right now of this pilgrimage that met these sudden flash floods. What more can you tell us?
Well, it's obviously a terrible, terrible tragedy. And one of somebody I know rather well, who's a cook, a chef, he's been giving our household a minute by minute, hour by hour update. It seems that there were really no warnings, even though they were told in Jammu, in his village when they were heading out, that anything can happen because it's raining. But there were really no early warning systems, and there was no deterrence. On the other hand, it's hit home to so many people. His own niece, who had an infant son, has died in this tragedy, but so many others. And what I'm hearing and what I concur with is that we really have to rethink three things. And one of them obviously is early warnings, but the other is to control domestic tourism, because the Himalayas are really fragile, and they're the newest mountains we have, and they're just collapsing because we had Uttarakanshi, we've had Himachal, we've had these horrific kind of landslides, floods, collapses in general. And it's not all just about a cloudburst, because some people are saying that we actually didn't have that kind of rainfall. And more importantly, the disaster, the tragedies could be less if we start acting expecting that climate change is going to put us to test all the time.
Bharati, thank you so much for joining us here on NewsX World. Unfortunately, we've run out of time on that. Pleasure to get such great insight from you, however. Thank you very much for joining us. We now move on and over to Europe, where 2 French water-dropping firefighting planes have arrived in Spain's Galicia region after Madrid activated the EU's disaster assistance mechanism for the first time. The move comes as Spain reported a 3rd wildfire-related death on Thursday, with heatwave conditions up to 44 degrees Celsius forecast to continue until Monday. Thousands have been evacuated and police have made 10 arson arrests since June. Spain is the 5th European country this summer to seek EU wildfire help, joining Greece, Bulgaria, Montenegro and Albania. Wildfires across the bloc have burned over 629,000 acres so far this year, with Spain accounting for about a quarter of the total. Well, that's all that we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you for joining us.